I the a-hole for not paying for my husband's hospital bill? I, female 31, been with my husband, male 36, for 3 years. We don't share finances, and we each contribute to household expenses equally and individually. He's pretty adamant on being respected when it comes to money, meaning I should not be asking him for money to pay for personal stuff. And the same goes for him, save for when it's an emergency. Last month, I was at the mall shopping for a dress to wear at my sister's wedding, and the money wasn't enough. I called my husband to ask him for money, about $200, but he refused even though he had the money. I wasn't upset. Well, yes, I'm not gonna lie, I was upset about it, because I ended up buying a cheaper dress, but I didn't make a fuss or fight with him for not giving me money. Just a couple of weeks ago, he was involved in an accident. It wasn't serious, but his knee was bad but got worse. He asked if I could help him pay for the hospital bill because I didn't expect to stay longer due to his injury, but I refused. He begged, but I said no was still no. He tried to guilt me into paying by saying that I have money, and that is dealing with an emergency. I said his irresponsibility, whether with money or driving, wasn't my problem. He ended up getting help from his mom. In fact, she paid for the entire bill, then grilled me hard about my refusal to pay. She called me a vile witch and said that I was devoid of empathy or any wife material to do this to my husband. I was bothered by her harassment and told my husband to get her to back off, but he sided with her. I had an argument with him about his double standards, where I'm expected to pay for him and him not doing the same for me like the dress incident a month ago. He looked at me in disbelief, called me insane, and said that I was at fault for not helping him, because unlike the dress incident, this was actually an emergency. Even said I stepped out of line to act this petty and vindictive. I walked out of the room to cool off, but it lasted for days and he's still salty about it. Don't even get me started on his mom. Am I the a-hole? I think I was just holding my part of no mixed finances policy. So, to provide more details, when I asked him to help pay for the dress, he asked if he'd get the money back, but I said no, because if I had the money and wasn't struggling, I wouldn't have asked for his help in the first place. That is why I said no. Though he said he'd pay me back when he asked that I help with the hospital bill. Now for the top comments. Everyone sucks here. Why the heck did you guys get married in the first place? Exactly my thoughts. Marriage is when you work together, not against each other. This. I kept trying to verbalize what Opie and husband are doing to each other, and they're just doing their best to work against their partner. The level of mutual spite is insane. He's pretty adamant on being respected when it comes to money, meaning I should not be asking him for money to pay for personal stuff, and the same goes for him. Save for when it's an emergency. Everyone sucks here, Opie. Both of you suck. Let's put the your money's yours minus mine for a second. Buying a fancy new dress for your wedding is not an emergency. You had an agreement, and the dress is not included in it. Why did you even ask him? I was upset about it because I ended up buying a cheaper dress, but I didn't make a fuss or fight with him for not giving me money. Stop acting like that's a favor to him. It's a mutual agreement. He tried to guilt me into paying by saying that I have money and that he's dealing with an emergency. I don't see any guilting here. He's stating facts. If you think buying a dress you can't afford is an emergency, per your agreement, why is hospitalization after an accident not one too? He looked at me in disbelief, called me insane, and said that I was at fault for not helping him because, unlike the dress incident, this was actually an emergency. Even said I stepped out of line to act this petty and vindictive. I actually think is right. Calling you insane was spiteful on his part, but he's 100% correct about the emergency thing. And it couldn't be clearer you're being petty and going out of your way to prove your point. You're the a-hole. You specifically say that you don't share finances save for when it's an emergency. You wanting a new dress isn't an emergency. Your husband having an unexpected hospital visit and stay is the very definition of an emergency. They said save their own money for their own emergencies, and then it played victim to mommy. I'm not saying they have a healthy or productive relationship, or that they should be in one period, but both Opie and husband are a-holes. You're the a-hole. The fact that you think I want this dress that's out of my price range is an emergency, and hospitalization after an accident isn't, says some truly terrible things about your character. Next story is titled, Am I the a-hole for how I reacted when my boyfriend wanted me to pay half his mortgage but not gain equity in the house? I am a 27-year-old woman and I'm getting to a point in my life where I'd consider home ownership. I have a good job in tech and I'm in a low cost of living area, and I'd been seriously shopping for a beginner home for myself. My boyfriend, who is 32, owns a house and we are talking about moving in together. That's something I'd like in some ways. I want to take the next step in our relationship and I'd love to build a home together. But I also have some equity as a personal financial goal, whether that would mean owning a home together with my boyfriend or buying my own starter home. But he already has a home and he's the sole owner. He pays $1,300 a month in mortgage and taxes and $430 in utilities. He wanted me to move in with him and pay half of that. So $650 for the monthly payment and $215 for the utilities. So $865 total. But it'd still be the sole owner. I said that I'd either want to be living somewhere I'd be gaining home equity, or establish a rental agreement that is at least as good as my current rental situation, which is allowing me to save for a down payment. And if it's going the rental way, I'd want a lease and all the rights and responsibilities of the lessor, him and the lessee, me, laid out. For example, the maintenance responsibilities being on the landlord, term of occupancy defined, a written agreement on the cost of rent and other monetary responsibilities. And I'd want to compare that to my current lease. My current landlord is very on top of maintenance, charges me $680 a month for rent, all utilities included. So if his lease agreement ended up being $865 monthly and the building is in worse repair, that would be a harder choice. I wouldn't want to raise my rent to live in worse conditions. I'd want a rent price that is in line with the current rental market. I'd estimate the rent he could charge on the open market for a room in his house in its current condition would be about $400 or $500 max. He got really upset, saying that he wanted to make a serious step in our relationship, and I was treating it like business, like I was putting on my work persona. I said that I wasn't trying to treat this like work. I do have a job where I have to be kind of detail-oriented and argumentative, but I was just trying to make good financial choices for myself just like he was doing. I said that honestly, I didn't think it would be a good choice to pay half of his mortgage, but he is the only one gaining equity. Unless there were other terms that made it more like a rental agreement, with me as a tenant, him taking full responsibility for the property and its maintenance, my rights defined, and the price being competitive with the current rental market. He got really frustrated and said I sounded like a gold digger. But I laughed at him and said if I were a gold digger, I'd be living with him for free. I'm not sure what I'm gonna do. I'm seriously considering extending my current lease. But I know my boyfriend feels upset I took my work approach out around him, instead of talking like it was a relationship talk. Am I the a-hole for how I discussed moving in with my boyfriend? Not the a-hole. And if anyone is a gold digger in this scenario, it's him. Good for you on looking at this from a business arrangement perspective, because it is. If you decide to live with him, I would go forward with having a signed contract as you've laid out. For you though, you might consider going ahead and purchasing a home but renting it out. That way you're still gaining equity in a property, living with your boyfriend and is still getting some rent. Just a thought. But whatever you decide, getting a contract with a boyfriend to living arrangements and expectations covers you in any circumstance. Not stay home. OP, don't move in with him unless you're going to save on rent. There's no benefit to you as it is. Basically, you'll be saving him a bunch of money, extending yourself further financially, and without a lease or anything, it sounds like he could kick you out if things don't work out. I also bet if something broke, he'd want to share the cost of it. I tell him you'll move in with him with a leading contract, be $400 a month in rent, and C, no obligation to help pay for anything else. Then, save up. Buy your own home and rent it out until you two decide if you have a future together, or where that future is headed. Not stay home. Or establish a rental agreement that is at least as good as my current rental situation, which is allowing me to save for a down payment. This seems like a good compromise. You shouldn't have to pay more than your current rental agreement because he owns a house that he bought on his own. That seems like he's trying to take advantage of you. He gets half off his mortgage. You pay more than what you are currently paying? Openly discussing finances is part of a relationship, especially one that's getting serious. You should know each other's income and all debts. and past criminal history/kids should be on the table. There is a difference between being a gold digger and protecting your interests fairly, something your boyfriend seems to be missing. He'd still get a deal even if you only paid the equivalent to what your rent is now, because he'd have extra money he didn't have before. Splitting things evenly isn't always fair. This is one of those situations. Not stay home. You are being irresponsible adult thinking ahead, while your boyfriend just wants to pay less for his mortgage. His proposed deal would only benefit him. Do your thing, save for your own property and live your best life. Next story. Am I the a-hole for refusing to put my packaged snacks back in the fridge per my husband's request? Hi, I, female 34, am diabetic, and keeping packaged snacks near me is essential, because oftentimes I get low blood sugar due to issues I have with appetite. I don't eat lunch or dinner properly. My brother-in-law and his pregnant wife moved in with us a month ago. The issue began when my sister-in-law started eating my snacks that I usually keep inside the fridge. I tried buying more snacks, but sometimes they run out, and I end up drinking water mixed with sugar in the middle of the night because I don't have anything else to eat, and my husband won't go out to the store and get me anything. I told my husband, and he told me to be patient with his brother's wife because she's pregnant and is considered sort of sick, so she needs to be cut some slack. I had it, to be honest. I moved all my snacks into the bedroom and inside a box just to keep them safe. Sister-in-law said it was strange that I no longer buy snacks, but I told her that I actually still do. I just keep them safe in my room so no one can touch them. She side-eyed me, then an argument ensued after my husband and his brother came home. My husband berated me for being rude to sister-in-law and childish for moving the snacks and keeping them in the bedroom. I told him why I did that though. He knows what was up, but he said I overreacted and that there was no harm in sharing. He demanded I put whatever snacks I have back into the fridge and stop acting like a child. I said that I won't, and if a sister-in-law and her husband get upset, then they need to understand that I'm diabetic and need those snacks essentially. He yelled in my face, calling me childish, then walked out. Brother-in-law and sister-in-law are cold-shouldering me, and my husband keeps pushing for me to put the snacks back into the fridge where they belong, or he won't speak to me as well. Am I the a-hole? Now for the top comments. Not the a-hole. She can buy her own damn snacks. She's just dating a baby, not turning into one. And she should be able to afford them, not paying full rent for a place of their own. Brother-in-law and sister-in-law should spend less time eating snacks and more time job searching/interviewing so they can get on their feet again if they're about to have a baby. Not the a-hole. Not the a-hole. Let me get this straight. 2 adults who are about to bring another human into the world are having a meltdown because you won't share your snacks? Please tell me there is a plan for them to move out soon, because this will not get better when the baby shows up. They're going to have a laundry list of things you should be doing for them. Yeah, when exactly are they moving out? I think Opie needs to move. They don't understand she could die. Unless the pregnant lady is also diabetic. She is not going to die and the baby won't be harmed if she's hungry. Opie will literally die if she doesn't have these handy. Aside from which, they belong to her. The husband yelling at his diabetic wife over snacks is the child. Your pregnant sister-in-law needs to buy her own damn snacks. Your pregnant sister-in-law needs to keep her hands off your snacks. Your husband needs to back you up. You're drinking sugar water in the middle of the night because there is nothing else? This is wrong. Your pregnant sister-in-law needs to be grateful and respectful that you took her in. Her entitled behavior is only going to get worse when the baby comes. I am so sorry. Not stay home and tell your husband to pound sand and buy a mini fridge and get a lock on it. And you don't have to care if anybody likes it. Take care of your own health first. It doesn't sound much like anybody else cares about you and your diabetes. Now for the last story. Am I the a-hole for refusing to kiss my husband's wound? Background. Whenever my 9-year-old son gets injured or hurt, I normally kiss the injured area as a way to comfort him and make the pain go away. I also use it as a source of strength, and he certainly sees it this way. I do not kiss the skin directly, but after I cover the injured area, obviously. My 35-year-old husband got into an accident and had an wound, on the left part of his chest. He has zero pain tolerance, but it takes medication for it. The other day, I was helping change his wound dressing and clean up the wound. Before I could place the new wound dressing, he asked me to kiss it. I refused. It just didn't feel right. His wound was still fresh, and there was already antibiotic ointment applied there, so I just didn't want to do it. He insisted and I kept declining. He then got mad and said that I'd do this with my son. Why not him? I suggested that we just let it go and proceeded to apply the new wound dressing. He stopped me and went on a long vent about how I don't care about him and that I clearly feel grossed out by him to not want to kiss his wound. I thought that was silly and told him to let me finish changing the wound dressing, but he started arguing and had me leave the room. I left and he kept sulking for the rest of the night. He then told my son that mommy doesn't love daddy and don't want to kiss his wound so he could get better. I was floored. My son actually came at me for upsetting my husband and just made me feel bad all around. I kept thinking that I caused this situation and should have just done what he wanted me instead of creating this tension at the house. So, what do you think? Not today, home. Remind your husband that kissing his boo-boo is a mom's job, not a wife's. If he'd rather have a mom than a wife, he needs to go back to his mom's house. And involving your son in his temper tantrum makes him double the a-hole. I wish I could upvote this 100 times. As a man, this post makes me embarrassed that he represents us. Not today, home. Your husband owes you an apology. Not only would I not apologize to him, I would 100% call him out on his manipulative behavior. Ask for an apology and agreement that he promises to never again use your child as a weapon. That crap is toxic AF. He should apologize to his son too. What a piece of work. This times 1,000. Kids do not forget parents switching about one another and puts seeds of doubt of an unstable household at a very young age. He needs to rectify the situation to the kid. You do not do it, OP. It is his responsibility. This 35-year-old man wanted you to kiss his open wound with ointment on it? Gross. I'm going to go with not day hall here. What husband seems to be missing is that she doesn't kiss the son's open wound either. She says she kisses it after it's bandaged. Hubby's one sick a-hole. Am I the a-hole for refusing to take care of my deadbeat father's affair family after he's gone? My deadbeat father walked out on me, my mom, and my sister when I, 21 male, was 5 years old. He had an affair with another woman and decided he wanted to be with her. He had nothing to do with us. Didn't even come to my sister's funeral 2 years later and never visited her in the hospital. He never paid for anything. He fought child support like crazy. When it became clear he wasn't going to help at all or pay anything, his parents, who initially wanted my mom to stay open to taking him back, stepped up and provided for us when we needed it. They also decided that I would be the one to inherit their estate when they passed. They set this up when I was 10 years old, ensuring my father wouldn't get anything, and neither would the children he had with his affair partner. I've always known about my father's other kids, but I have never considered them siblings. My sister, who passed away when we were young, will forever be my only real sibling. I grew up having zero contact with my father or his affair family. Last year, my father reached out because he was diagnosed with cancer and wanted to reconcile. I refused to respond, but he went to my grandparents. They told him I wanted nothing to do with him, even on his deathbed. They hadn't had a relationship with him for over a decade, but when they heard about his illness, part of them hoped he would back off me. This brings us to the reason for my post. My father recently learned about the inheritance arrangement, and that my grandparents have set things up so that neither he nor his affair family can contest the will. He now knows he and his other kids will get nothing from the estate, even if he were still alive. He began reaching out to me, begging me to make sure his affair family is okay after he dies. He admitted he and his affair partner made bad choices in the past, but said he wants to ensure the kids are taken care of. At first, I ignored him, but he kept pestering me. I eventually replied, telling him that I want nothing to do with this affair of family and will never help them. He became hysterical, sending texts and DMs about how his family is innocent and that I should try to know them and help them if they ever need it. Am I the a-hole? Now for the top comments. I'll provide them the same care you gave to your firstborn daughter as she died in hospital. The same involvement you had with her funeral will be shared back to your new family from me. Send, block, and forget he ever existed at all. Not the a-hole. Funny how his family are innocent, yet he walked out on 3 innocent people. And when his daughter, a child, was dying, he didn't give a crap. He also didn't pay child support for his innocent children because it was his duty as a father. Now he's trying to fight for his affair children to be provided for? His hypocrisy is off the charts. He made his choices, and now he expects you to clean up his mess? It's wild how he can suddenly care about family when it benefits him. Total not the a-hole. Not the a-hole. Just think, if he didn't get sick, you still wouldn't have heard from him. You are only good enough to talk to because he wants something. Tell him you will show him the same love and care on his deathbed that he showed your poor sister. Block him and anyone else who tries to hassle you. Oh, I'm sure I would have heard from him after my grandparents died, but they are both still healthy and doing good, so it would have taken forever for him to reach out if he hadn't gotten sick. 100% you would have heard from him then. Selfish people like him only care about what benefits themselves. I'm glad you have grandparents that are there for you. Not the a-hole. He spent your whole life ignoring you and now expects you to clean up his mistakes? You owe him nothing, and it's not your responsibility to fix the consequences of his actions. The fact that he abandoned you and your sister speaks volumes. It's baffling he thinks that after all his time, you owe him or his family anything. Next story. Am I the a-hole for telling my sister-in-law and her husband that foster care is better than being taken in by family who don't want you? I, 27 male, spent most of my childhood in foster care, but I also had a slightly more unique experience of having family who, after I was removed from my parents, did take me in. However, they were family members who did not want me, and the year I lived with them was one of the worst of my life, by far worse than the 11 years I spent in foster care. Grudges held against one of my parents meant there was no love, affection, or kindness for me. I'm still not sure why they took me in, but it only lasted a year. Then they told the caseworker they couldn't keep doing it, and I fully entered the system. I never got adopted and had some really crappy foster families, but all of that was still better than the year I lived with those relatives. If I had to explain why, I'd say it's largely due to how damaging it can be for biological relatives to show so much resentment and disdain for you. Growing up, I used to hear all the time how families should stand by each other and how family love was a sure thing. So being a kid and not being loved by family can make you feel so much more unlovable. I know I used to wonder what was wrong with me. Even though young me was told about the issues between my relatives and my parent, it didn't stop me from blaming myself. That year of my life took over a decade to heal from, and therapy after I left the system was the biggest asset in helping me recover. I explained all this because I need to provide context for why I said what I did. My wife's sister and her husband were approached to take in the husband's 2 very young half-siblings. He has never met them and has no interest in a relationship. There is no other biological family to ask, just him. His interest in or care for them is 0. But they worried about looking bad by saying no when the kid's other option is foster care. He knows the kids are innocent of the issues he had with his biological mother. They wondered if they should take them in anyway and knew I had some experience. I told them that foster care is far better than being taken in by family who don't want you. I explained that it is so much more damaging if they get taken in by bio family who can't treat them with even the most basic care. How it can be extra harmful. Unless they are willing to work on wanting the kids and forming a relationship, the kids would be better off trying to find a foster family. I told them taking them in without forming a relationship would be awful for the kids. A friend of theirs was around when we were talking, and she berated me for the comments I made. She said foster care is the worst place for a kid to be, and that indifferent bio relatives are better than all the abuse that happens in foster care. I argued that foster care can be better, and it sure was in my experience, even at its worst. She claimed I was biased and not thinking about the reality of being in foster care. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. There is never a one-size-fits-all answer to anything. Life is a roll of the dice. Sometimes you crap out and sometimes you don't. It was perfectly fine for you to speak about your own experiences. Exactly. Not every family situation is a fairy tale. Sometimes foster care can genuinely be a better option, and it's brave to share that perspective. Not the a-hole. But what's wrong with her? Is she ever being adopted? She lived in foster care before? Cut out the fantasy land about loving bio family. Real life is worst when being with family that didn't want you. OP, don't argue with Karen. Don't lower yourself to their level. My grandmother and her brother were forever affected by their parents' divorce. It was during the Depression, and they were shuffled around to different relatives who already had large families. My grandmother said years later that she never let them see how hungry she was, or how it bothered her that they so openly resented her and her brother as being burdens. Not the a-hole. You were asked for your opinion based off your personal lived experience. You gave it. The friend needs to stay in her lane. Exactly. They asked, she answered. Friend should have stayed out of it. Next story. Am I the a-hole for grounding my daughter and canceling her senior trip after I found out she was cheating on her boyfriend? I have two daughters, Lizzie, 17 female, and Mackenzie, 14 female. Their dad and I divorced a few years ago after I discovered he was having an affair. I have the kids most of the time, and their dad has them every weekend and during the summers. Lizzie has been dating Jacob, 18 male, for over a year now. Jacob is constantly at our house. He's a sweet, good young man, and I believe he'll be the valedictorian of their class. However, a few weeks ago, I overheard Lizzie on the phone with a guy, clearly flirting. At first, I thought it was Jacob, but then I heard her say Brandon. I realized she was talking to someone else. Then, a week later, she mentioned to me that she was heading out to hang with a friend, and when I looked out the window, I saw her get into a car and greet a guy with a kiss. It wasn't Jacob. Even after that, Jacob continued to come over, hanging out with Lizzie. He and Lizzie still acted like a couple, holding hands, laughing, and spending time together, just like they always had. I felt disgusted knowing my daughter was being a two-timer. After Jacob left that day, I confronted my daughter. I asked her point blank, "Are you cheating on your boyfriend with another guy?" She said it was none of my business and that her personal life was hers only. I told her she was wrong and that I raised her better than to treat people like this. She told me she was bored with Jacob and that Brandon was more her type now. I told her that if she wasn't happy, she should just break up with Jacob. She said she didn't know if she wanted to be with Brandon or if she was just having fun flirting and teasing. I told her cheating was unacceptable and wrong, and as a consequence, I grounded her. I also told her she wasn't allowed to go on her senior trip with her friends. She obviously did not take that too well, and has been at her dad's place for the last couple of days. My ex-husband called me, saying I was being unreasonable but not letting her go on the trip and that her relationship with Jacob was just a high school thing. He then told me I needed to put my bitterness aside and stop punishing his daughter. I told him I was teaching our daughter right from wrong and that actions have consequences. Is your daughter aware of the reason for the divorce? Yes. Not the a-hole. Your post sounds like Lizzie's daddy's girl, and he's been green-lighting her behavior. He's definitely the fun parent. Dad gives them money and takes them on trips, while I do the actual parenting. My youngest needed a physical exam for soccer tryouts, and he couldn't even be bothered to do that. Maybe it's time for Dad to take Lizzie most of the time, and you enjoy her presence during the weekend and summers. I'd hate for her to influence the youngest to behave in such unscrupulous ways. Good luck, Opie. You're a great mom. Maybe even consider telling Jacob or his parent about Lizzie's actions. When I got cheated on, I wish someone had told me sooner. She will probably learn to be better at cheating. What you're doing is not wrong, but I don't think it will work. Everyone keeps acting like it's all or nothing. OP's daughter is gonna get caught and will have to face serious consequences. What OP has done is guarantee her teen won't come to her for help. Talk to the kid and even express your disappointment, but this punishment is so over the top. OP made her teen the victim, and that's how the teen will see it. I agree, and think something more appropriate to the situation that isn't a punishment would be to say that the boyfriend can't come to the house anymore if she's cheating, because OP won't participate personally in duping him. That means OP isn't confronted with a personally upsetting situation, and thus also creates a good motivation for daughter to make a better choice as she can't keep everything the same. Last story. Am I the a-hole for telling my cheating wife that I deserve a vacation with my girl best friend? My wife and I have been married for more than 2 decades now. We have 2 children who are both in college. A couple of years ago, my wife admitted to cheating on me in a one-night stand. She said it was the worst mistake of her life, and that she deeply regretted it. At the time, our marriage was going through a lot of difficulties, and we were even seriously considering divorce. However, I never expected my wife to betray me like that. My wife showed a lot of remorse and was willing to do anything for reconciliation. While I almost filed for divorce, I decided not to and chose to give our family a chance. To be honest, it was the best decision I've ever made in my life. Strangely enough, that incident which pushed our marriage to the brink also repaired it. While I occasionally still have days where I feel heartbroken and betrayed, those days are infrequent because my wife has done everything possible to show how much she loves me and our family. I have also been friends with Vanessa since we were in kindergarten. Vanessa used to spend a lot of time at my house, and she pretty much became my adopted sister. Vanessa and I were really close and never lost our friendship, despite all the life changes we went through. Vanessa was the best woman at my wedding, and I was the man of honor at hers. Initially, my wife was insecure about our friendship because she thought from her woman's intuition that Vanessa had feelings for me. However, after getting to know Vanessa, she realized that Vanessa was just a really close friend. During the time my wife cheated on me, I confided in Vanessa, and she recommended that I take 3 weeks to take a breather after making my decision. That turned out to be a great suggestion and ultimately saved my marriage. I told my wife about it, and she was really grateful to Vanessa as well. Fast forward to today, both my kids are in college. Last month, Vanessa reached out to me and asked if we could take a week-long trip to our hometown to visit our favorite childhood places. It would be a road trip where we would drive through the city, visit our high school, favorite parks, restaurants, etc. To be honest, the suggestion really excited me because I've been feeling a bit empty since my kids left for college. I told my wife about it and I expected some pushback. My wife understandably was shocked and said this seemed like a romantic trip I was taking with my girl best friend. She was worried something might happen, especially because Vanessa is divorced. I told my wife there was nothing romantic about this trip. It's just a trip 2 friends are taking down memory lane. I also told my wife I wouldn't have even considered this trip if she hadn't cheated on me 2 years ago. But now, she needed to allow it. I explained that I needed a mental health break and that I still occasionally feel betrayed because of what happened 2 years ago. After many discussions, my wife ultimately agreed to it, and I was really happy about it. Was I the a-hole? Telling me about revenge without actually telling me. Exactly. OP guy here. You taking this trip is as selfish as your wife's one-night stand. Perhaps even more so, since it's definitely premeditated and of a much longer duration. Oh, and let me guess, 1 room? No offense, OP. You're a moronic a-hole. You're destroying what purportedly had been improvement in your marriage. Resentment will rule the day. Plus, it is 2 years after the fact. How does this trip have anything to do with it? Did his best friend say, "Hey, in 2 years let's take a trip as a way of getting past your wife cheating"? I have a feeling he uses the "you cheated" card a lot. I could divorce my wife, or I can use this as leverage to treat her like crap for the rest of her life. My husband did a lot of messed up stuff early on in our relationship. We've learned, grown, and are in an amazing place now. Sure, from time to time memories come up and it stings. There's a tiny part of me that is holding on to the resentment, and I'm truly working on letting it go. It gets lighter and lighter each day. I can understand that feeling of, well, you did that, so I should be able to do this. But that will lead to nowhere but distance and disconnect in our now near-perfect relationship. I will not do anything to jeopardize what we have. There is no use for a tit-for-tat in a healthy relationship. Your wife messed up. That is a divorceable offense, and you would have been in the right. I would have been fully within my right to leave my husband. But the fact of the matter is, we decided to stay and we forgave and continue to forgive our spouses. Forgiveness is ongoing. You stated your wife has changed and your relationship is better for it. If you go on this trip, you will bring destabilization in your marriage. There's no universe where I'd go on a trip alone with a man who isn't my husband. I don't care what is done in the past. I wouldn't expect him to be okay with it. If you're having second thoughts or feel this marriage isn't for you, or that you can't forgive her completely, that's okay. It will hurt her, but sometimes the pain is so deep that it just lingers. But don't expect to stay in a healthy marriage if you keep holding the past over her head for you to do things your wife is not comfortable with. It's a bit sus that your divorced female friend is asking you to go on a trip alone together to reminisce about old times. Something does not add up here. Does she not care about how this may impact your marriage? As a woman, that just feels very odd. My best friend is a married man. There's no world where I'd go on a trip with him without inviting her. That's weird.